I just don't think Skid Roses would be something that that we should probably do. Sebastian's an old friend, and
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion. My name is Brando, episode number 523. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Kelly Shaefer. How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic, Brandon. How are you? 523, huh?
Yeah, it's
Wow, that's
hard.
a lot of chats.
I know. It's all centered around Guns N' Roses, but we're going to focus on Velvet Revolver in a little bit. I know everyone and their mother has a podcast nowadays, and I wanted to be a little different and see all these little side characters and me find out stories that people may not have heard before. So to kind
Yeah.
of get into it, there was a story about you that I had never heard before that kind of came out that you auditioned for Velvet Revolver. You know what? I want to because I'm a very natural kind of conversation. So that's the story we're
Yeah.
going to get into. Because I got distracted immediately. Do you hear my son in the background saying, no, no,
No,
no, no?
no,
Okay, good. He's
not in
asking.
a bothersome way. I mean, it's all good. Just keep it. I'm so used to that anyway. I have kids, so it's a normal sound for me.
I, I
No,
wanted
it's all good.
I wanted to ask because I guess congratulations, your son Thor just started
Yeah,
third grade. Is that what I guess saw on social media?
yeah, man. I got all love Facebook. Yeah, he's a little nervous. It's a tough first day. He was on the bottom floor of his elementary school, which is kindergarten, first and second. So now he's upstairs, and he doesn't know all the teachers up there. And so I remember being terrified of every first day of school. Fucking
Sure.
hate it. Can I
Yeah.
cuss on this thing? Can I speak
Yeah. Oh
freely?
yeah. 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 No,
Okay,
you
fuck.
can. Okay. I mean, it's a Guns and
But I
Guns and Roses. Yeah, it's his
but
podcast.
yeah, I definitely I can feel his pain now. But he's almost to his first week now, so he's in a lot better spirits. Thanks for asking.
You got it. Because once I saw, I'm like, Thor, that's a cool name. Because Harrison Rex, that's his official name. On the podcast, though, he goes by Baby Brownstone. Sometimes he makes an appearance. We'll see. But I
Yeah, I
guess
wanted to set him up for success. I didn't want to name him like Thurman or something. And then it'd be a tough life as a Thurman. So no disrespect to the Thurmans out there,
Thurman
but
Munson, I mean, his
Thurman
life
Munson. Yeah,
ended.
I was going to see how New York you were. You were very New York, aren't you?
Yeah, it's before my time, but I know
Yeah, I was
Thurman
gonna say you don't look
Munson.
old enough to know Thurman Munson. I'm old enough to have watched him play.
I'll be 42 in a month, believe it or not.
Nice.
Yeah,
You're
but
carrying
still,
it well, my friend.
I appreciate it. But yeah, before my time. But I wanted to get because one of the things I saw in that Velvet Revolver post was that the guys didn't know you were from this band Atheist. So
Yeah.
before we even get to that, how aware is Thor or your kids know of Atheist? Do they ask you what it is? Because my son, he doesn't know what I'm doing. I'm like, Daddy's working on the computer. I cannot play Legos with you right now. Like it's hard to
No, he
explain. Do your
not
kids
only does
know?
he yeah, not only does he not know, but he could probably care less. I couldn't care less. I just got back from Australia and Japan and on tour, and we're getting ready to head to Europe. And I mean, he just wants to know when we're going to Taco Bell, when we're going to go to Universal Studios, and yeah, I get no love for that. I mean, he understands it. Every now and then I'll show him a video on YouTube, and I'll be like, "That's Daddy." I mean, and especially about being confident. I was like, "Listen, every single time Daddy walks out on stage, it's fucking terrifying." You know what I mean? Especially with a singer. I played guitar and sang for a lot of years in the '90s, and I kind of felt like that was my shield. So then in '93, I stopped playing guitar on stage. I still play every day, but I just didn't want to play on stage anymore. And found myself feeling very vulnerable, without a guitar in front of me. So I try to help him understand that that's, every day that you go into school and you feel like, the class is looking at you. I said, that's how I feel. And I show him, me standing in front of thousands of people. We played in Mexico and it was like 10, 12,000 people. And I was like, wouldn't that fucking terrify you? I was like, but I did it. You see, Daddy's doing it. And I said, it's all about just being confident, So I try to use the rock for the lessons.
I appreciate that. Yeah, he's my son is the first one, so I'm gonna learn these things of how to teach him about confidence and teach him because I talk about it on this podcast. Just because I'm in radio, I've been doing it for 20 years. I get nervous. I'm nervous before this interview. I got to teach him to be confident within himself and his abilities. something that was a challenge for me. But I think I'm at a point in my life where I'm good. So I'm looking forward to that challenge. Challenge
You know
with
what else
him.
I tell him is also, you know, that never goes away. I mean, and it shouldn't go away because the
Yeah.
moment you become that complacent about whatever you do, be it podcasting or performing, um, if you don't give a shit, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. I mean, there should be a tingle, there should be an anxiety to performing and to being an interviewer or having a talk show, all these kinds of things, that are, because it matters. If it matters to you, then you should feel that anxiety. And I told him, I said that, the fact that you go into third grade and you're nervous means that you care. You want to know that the teacher knows that you're paying attention because he's a really good dude. He's smart.
Hmm.
But he went through a lot of shit when he was in kindergarten because he's got really long hair.
Mm.
And I couldn't believe, like, I mean, when I was in school, bullying was very, very tough. I went through it hardcore to the point where I quit high school. But
Mm.
I didn't think it would happen in kindergarten. And because of his long hair, he had these little assholes in his classroom were like, you should use the girls' room. To this day, he's in third grade now, and he won't let me put his hair in a ponytail except unless we're at home. I'm like,
Wow.
buddy, it's 95 degrees and 100% humidity in Florida right now. When you're on the playground, you're trying to run, and he's got slash hair but blonde. You know what I mean? He's trying to run, and it's like, it's in his mouth, and I'm like, buddy, if you just let me put it in a ponytail, he's still. And I show him all my friends, and all the band, my band members. I'm like, see, buddy, long hair. It doesn't. And those kids are the ones that are the outcasts, not you. And so it's just hard because he's one of the maybe two or three kids in his whole school that have hair that long, as a boy. So it's like, but I
I
asked him, like, do you want to cut it? And he's like, no, 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 I don't want to cut it. So bless his heart.
I appreciate that story because my son has long blonde hair. Believe it or
Mm.
not, when I was born, I was blonde hair, blue eyed. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I came out a different race, I guess, and I lost. I just it changed. So yeah, my eyes are green now. Lost my hair, whatever. But yeah, he's long hair. My wife, we sometimes we baby bun, man bun, whatever, because
Yeah.
he's eating a popsicle, he's eating yogurt. It's all in his hair everywhere. He's running around the park, sweating everywhere. We talk about that. When
Yeah.
are we going to
It's
cut
the
his
thing.
hair? And well, it's sad that it's still a thing in 2025, and especially in kindergarten. So
Yeah, but yeah, and
that's good to know.
yeah, the
See,
only
good
reason
to
a kid
know.
in kindergarten knows to be that much of a little dick is because dad's a dick,
There
clearly. You know
you
what I
go.
mean? So,
There you go.
there's no way that I know that Thor would ever treat anybody like that. He would never, be it skin color or hair length. He was just, unless you're hearing that from your parents or you're around that kind of mentality, and you're not going to repeat that shit. But what happens is also there could be just one kid, and then the other kids hear that and they think, yeah, long hair is for girls, you should be using the girls' room. But I just thought, God, it's 6 years old. So anyway, yeah, so that was tough. And it's still, like I said, he won't let me put it back. I'm like, I show him even Thor, the character Thor. I'm like, ponytail, man bun. Look, every time I see somebody with that, I was like, look at that guy. He's a man's man. I mean, like, he'll get over it though. He'll laugh about it when he gets older, or he'll cut his hair and just move on.
Yeah, either or. He's
Right
got
now, he
the
looks cool as shit though.
yeah, he did
He
look
should be
cool.
front of the family right
That's
now.
why I wanted to bring it up just because I can relate to a bit, and I feel like I'm
Yeah.
getting some advice here for the future. So I appreciate that, and to get to know you a little bit because this all sounds like a cool guy. I would have loved to have seen front Velvet Revolver. so so it came out a few weeks ago, I guess. It was posted by Metal Sucks, and it was unearthed that you had some demos with VR. And I've had people on the podcast who, like Josh Todd, who's with Buck Cherry, who kind of started that with Slash. It was never Velvet Revolver, but just different stories of people. Recently, Jimmy Nico, who thought he was going to get close to being hired. A lot of different people with different Velvet Revolver stories. I had never heard yours. So if you can kind of take us back to, how you
Yeah.
found out about the audition. And what, again, I found really interesting is because they were looking at certain names, people they knew. Did they know who you are and associated with the Atheist? Because it seems like that wasn't the case.
No, I was in a band called Neurotica, and
Right.
we were on Ozfest in 2002, and the band had been together about 8 years. Did our first album, was produced by Brian from AC/DC, and And then we ended up being the first band signed to the WWE SmackDown record. So, you know, we were having a good run with Neurotica. And then after that tour was over, basically Linda McMahon and Vince McMahon were like, you know, we don't have the infrastructure to be a proper record label. So rather than be like most labels, they gave us all of our masters back, which is amazing. And then, so I came back, I owned a tattoo shop at that time in my life as well. And so when I came back off that tour, I just happened to be looking at blabbermouth.net, and there was a story where Slash is, you know, saying he's putting together the project, and there are no real rock frontmen around anymore. They've been listening to hundreds of demos. And so I was like, you know, I come from, even though I play, you know, I have a pretty strange career. You know, I started in the late 80s with Atheist, which is a groundbreaking jazz fusion death metal band when there wasn't anything like that. And so we were known for sort of creating technical metal, and you know, sort of Rush meets Slayer, you know. I mean, it's really, really interesting. And that band broke up in '93, and I put Neurotica together and moved out. But I've always had this. I come from that you know, that where David Lee Roth is a god, you know. Singers, you know what I mean? They're, you know, the idea of a rock singer gets sort of stifled in a metal setting. But I still have that at heart. I'm still that guy. I like to not take myself too seriously, and yada yada. So when I saw that, I was like, fuck that. So I called my manager at the time, was a guy named Doug Kay, and I was like, hey man, let's send him the Neurotica record. And he was like, you know, in his defense, he's probably right. You know, he's like, he's in LA, he's got it, he can handpick anybody. Well, you know what? Why is he going to choose you? And I was like, well, first of all, thanks. You know, but and then I just, you know, and he pretty much said no. You know, and you know, I didn't get too mad about it that time. I just remembered that our publicist for Neurotica, who worked at Koch Records, a girl named Lulu, had been Slash's publicist prior to that. And I remember her telling me that story just randomly. And I was like, shit, I'm going to call her. And I called her. And because it, you know, it was a pretty big announcement when, you know, when Slash said, you know, after they played the Randy Castillo gig with Josh Todd, I think,
Yeah.
that kind of opened their eyes to, hey, you know, like maybe we should get together and write some music. And then so when that came about, I reached out to her, and she immediately, before I even finished the sentence, was like, oh, I'm going to send it to him right away. I'll send him the Neurotica record. So fast forward a few days later, and I missed the call initially from Slash. I went to voicemail. I was in a bar having a drink, and I go out to have a cigarette, and I check my voicemail, and there it is, you know, and it's Slash. And so I remember going back in and talking to the guys that I was sitting with. I was like, never going to fucking believe who's on my voicemail right now. And they were like, who? And I was like, Slash just called me. And they were like, what? And so I passed the phone around, you know, and let them all listen. And it was cool, man. Keep in mind, I'm an underground metal guy. You know, I mean, you know, my band was there in the very early stages of extreme metal. And so that's been my MO, you know. And so, you know, Slash is kind of like the Joe Perry of my generation, you know what I mean? He's the or the Keith Richards of my generation, but way better guitar player. Keith Richards. So I was just like, I thought it was cool. So yeah, so I called him back, and he said, he's like, yeah, you know, me and Duff, we've been listening to, like, you know, just hundreds of demos, and we actually sat and listened to this whole record. What happened to this band? And I said, yeah, you know, explain what happened. And we just we called it a day after, you know, going through about 8 years of shit. And he was like, okay, well, you know, we've written like 36 songs, and so I'm going to send you 3. Just write your lyrics and record them and send them back. So I was like, okay. So I waited, and I got a package from Saul Hudson, and the return address. And I wish I kept it. I did not keep
really?
it. I'm terrible about keeping things. I still regret that, because it was. I remember getting it.
What stamps did he use? Do you remember that?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. But I mean, just seeing Saul Hudson on that, I thought that's fucking great, man.
Sure.
And I mean, what's he gonna write? Slash? You know, I mean, of course he had to write his real name.
He might though.
Nah, he's too cool, man. Slash is like, he's got less attitude than some of the, you know, some local musicians I've met over the years. You know what I mean? Very cool guy. And so they sent me these songs, man, and I'll never forget it, man. I got in my car and I rode around and I listened to it. I was like, all right. So I went in the studio and did my thing, sent it back, and like 3 days later, I got a conference call with him and Duff, and they were like, "Can you come out to LA?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I said, on my dime. And they were like, yep. And I was like, shit. So then I was faced with the scenario of having to figure out, I had to come up with some bucks I hadn't been paid for the tour that I had been on just at that
They
point.
couldn't
So,
even
I
fly
looked at
you
my
out.
parole. What's
Whatever.
that?
I mean, I'm not here to go in anyone else's pocket, but they couldn't fly you out at least. Come on.
It was a hazing, man. I believe I think it was purposeful. And,
Okay.
I guess kind of expected. And, I usually leave that part out of the story, I mean, just because it sounds, I don't want to be derogatory to those guys because they couldn't have been
Oh,
more kind. But I think that's, why should they? They're fucking kings, I mean, why should they fly me out there, as an opportunity for me? If I can't find my way out to LA, then, it's
fair.
almost like a job interview, I mean, if you want to work here, you got to be here.
You know what?
So I,
That's fair. Good
I
point.
fucking went out and, who I got to pay for it was the manager who said, oh, come on, man. Slash is in LA. I was like, yeah, you can pay for it. You can help me pay for it. He had a bunch.
Nice.
He was doing well financially. So he was like, he was really blown away as well. He was like, good for you, man. And because I'm like, listen, everybody shits and wipes their ass the same. I know how musicians are. The most humble, kind Brian Johnson, AC/DC, one of the kindest, most sincere, humble people you'll ever meet in your life. Like, I know that deep down inside that there's that persona that everybody has put on them, but most of them, people that are successful are very kind and not, aloft like people might think. So I get on. And I was really excited when they both called. They were like, "Yeah, we love it. And this is great." And come out here. And so I went out there, and I was really prepared. I mean, and I'm not sure that they were prepared for my preparedness.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because keep in mind, I've been a Guns N' Roses fan since the beginning, and I used to work construction and listen to it on the job site, and even though I was into really heavy music as well, I always had appreciation for Guns N' Roses, and I think even the hardcore metal people back then at least had an appreciation for the grime of GNR, especially
Hmm.
compared to like Poison and all that garbage. Guns N' Roses had balls, they had moxie, so I go out there and Matt Sorum picks me up from the airport and I'm like, holy fuck, this is cool because I was a big Cult fan too.
Sure.
And so it was, for a death metal guy, I was outside of my element. And so we drive to my hotel, drop my shit off, jump back in the truck, and head to Mate, which was a rehearsal studio in LA that kind of everybody goes to prepare for tours. And so like at that time, like Thin Lizzy was there, and oddly Sebastian Bach was also there rehearsing for a tour. And they had cameras set up in there, and they had everything was being recorded. So I was like, here we go. But before we went in, smoking a cigarette outside, and a Jaguar pulls up, and out comes Slash, and like a cartoon character, I mean, just literally looks like, I mean, we're talking about a guy that can be recognized by his silhouette. There's not a lot of rock stars that you could recognize from 100 yards from a silhouette.
I've said
So
that on the podcast,
have you?
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the Michael Jackson or the Michael Jordan thing, like
Mm-hmm.
Slash is that. So he comes up, man, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" Just super cool, very laid back. And we went inside, and I pulled out all my papers, and then he says, again, not knowing where I come from, and he says, "So do you have any earplugs?" And I said, no, no, no. And he's like, it's pretty loud. So, I just want to let you know we're earplugs." And I'm thinking, shit, man, I've been standing in front of death metal guitars for fucking 15, 20 years,
Right.
loud as shit in a small rehearsal room. So I just kind of laughed it off. I said, no, I'm good. I'm good. And so we proceeded to jam, man. And it was fucking great. It was really, really good. And we got to the end of the third song and it was kind of like, my vocal style is not unlike Axl in a way. It's a little higher than normal. It's a little raunchy and raspy and I've been around bands long enough to recognize when the band is like, oh, I gotta get this guy out of here. And they were looking at each other like, hey, right, and so I was like, hey, I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette because I could tell they wanted to talk.
Mm.
And so I go out and I smoke a cigarette, and I'll never forget. Duff comes out and he looks at me from across the parking lot and he goes, and I was thinking,
Thumbs
what's
up.
happening? I got the job, or So then I walk over to him and he's like, hey, can you stay over the weekend? So now I'm faced with another hotel dilemma. So I have to call. I
Mm.
have to call the manager back and say, hey man, they want me to stay for the weekend until Monday. So he's like, yeah, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it. So yeah, we rehearsed another day, and So we had 2 really, really good days. We went out to eat together, had great conversation, and Duff picked me up the second day, and we went through a car wash with his car, which was completely insane for me. Like just like anybody else, like it's just never mind. It's just Duff from Guns N' Roses getting his car, like sitting there with that wooden stick in his hand. We're sitting on the bench waiting for them to call his name so he can get his car.
Yeah.
But just, really cool guy. He reminded me a lot. I'm friends with Scotty Hill from Skid Row.
Okay.
They actually talk a lot, very similar. And they
Mm.
came up in the same era. So I don't know. I just felt really comfortable with Duff. Probably the most comfortable with Duff. He just seemed, very candid and transparent about all the shit he'd been through with drugs and because he was in great shape. I was like, man, really, you must be working out or something. He's like, yeah, I took Wellbutrin and all these different things to quit smoking and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, he was super lucid and clear and great. So not to tell you the big long story, but so anyway, so Sunday comes around. I'm supposed to meet up with them on Monday for one last rehearsal. And I'm out at like this really packed bar in LA with a bass player from a band called OTEP, and who was on the Ozfest tour with me. And I get a call from Slash, and he's like, "Hey, we're in the studio right now. Can you come?" And I was like, "Where is it?" And I've already had a couple of drinks. I'm not supposed to see them today or anything. And he's like, "It's in the Valley." And so I asked him, I was like, "Where's the Valley?" And he was like, "Oh man, it's like 1 a.m." So I'm like, "Shit." And he's like, "Man, it's 45, 50 minutes outside from the city." So I was like, and he's like, I'll take you. So he takes me in the studio that we went to was the place where they did Appetite. And it was covered in barbed wire, and it looked like an abandoned building from the outside. It just looked super sketchy. And, again, by now it's, I don't know, probably 1:45 a.m. So and then there's a gate, and I bring myself in and I go in. And so as I'm walking down the hall, I can hear Slash soloing in one of the rooms. And so I was like, oh man, cool. So anyway, fast forward, it turns out on that day is the day that Izzy split. And so they told me what happened, and they're like, yeah, we're working on this song. I'm gonna do it. Slash like, I'm gonna do a solo, and then we're gonna split. And I was like, okay. And mind you, I never even heard this fucking song or anything, so I had to on the spot sit there and write lyrics for it, and do the vocal. And we did. I sat with the engineers until probably 4 a.m, and then I had no way to get back to my hotel. And so I literally had to, again, call my manager and get him to call the cab company, give them the credit card so I could get out of there and go back. So the next day I go into rehearsal with them, and, I sat on the couch with Slash, and he was like, man, he was talking to me about Josh Todd and guys like that, some of the guys that they had auditioned and why it didn't work out. And even Sebastian Bach, he was like, yeah, he literally said, I just don't think Skid Roses would be something that, that we should probably do. Sebastian's an old friend and blah, blah, blah. He's just really candid about it, which is cool. And he said, I don't know where we're going to go. I don't know which way. He says, but right now, you're my guy. He's like, you're my guy. So I was like, awesome. He goes, no matter what happens, like, you're a fucking great singer. And I told this story on a number of other occasions to metal magazine and stuff. That was the first time, even though Brian Johnson gave me, worked with me on my vocals, and so that was the first time I really felt like a rock singer. I was like, cool, man. I'll take that and put it in my pocket. And so anyway, it was real cool. And I flew back to Florida, and then what happened was, Weiland and Weiland's wife and Duff's wife were really good friends, and obviously they got the inside scoop. And then, but Rolling Stone ran an article. I'm sure you've probably seen it if you're an enthusiast, where it was all about Velvet Revolver and what was happening. And the 4 pictures they used were Sebastian, Travis Meeks, myself, and Scott Weiland. And so yeah, for an audition that I never got, it was an incredible experience. And I treasure it. And I lost those. The reason those resurfaced a couple of weeks ago is because I lost my copy of my demo. And so, like, a late night, one night, just like I'm sitting out here in this very spot, and I found them online. I remembered somebody maybe gave them a copy of it or something, and sure enough, I found it. And so I just randomly posted like 1:30 a.m, and then woke up the next day, and it was all over the place, and my phone was all blowing up, and And I was like, that's cool. You know, I mean, there's just a lot of people in my world of atheists that had no idea that that happened either. And so it's just kind of like this, I call it sort of the catfishing moment of,
Uh-huh.
just because I just feel like, that's happened a lot in my career. People say, oh, you're a professional musician. I go, yeah. They go, oh, what's the name of your band? Atheist. Immediately it's like dismissed as
Mm.
trivial or childlike, or, depending on what age group I was when I had the conversation. That's how people are about religion. You know what I mean? And if you're not in their tribe, then, oh, atheist. Oh, what? So where are you, a devil worshiper? And I'm like, do you have a dictionary? I mean, but to know what the word atheist means. I mean, I've just had that. I've been attacked so many times over the years. So it was a natural defense mechanism to not tell them about atheist. Who knows? Maybe some guy in the band's like, no fucking way. Are we going to have anybody? I don't care how good he is. We're not going to have a guy named, and that's been in a band called Atheist. So I was like, shit.
You're
But
not
they
you're not
never found
wrong.
out.
It's
Yeah,
well,
you
you're
can
not.
see that, right? You know.
I unfortunately I could see that because people are judgmental. And look, I've been judged by the name of my podcast. That's why I can't get Slash or Duff on it because of the name of the podcast. So it's just like
Wow.
you just never know. But it's name worked for you in other areas. Name's working for me in other areas. I guess I appreciate that entire story. I even though it didn't end a certain way. I mean, I love hearing it because it's a combination of being a fan. Wow, here I am with Slash. I'm sitting on a bench with Duff. This Guns N' Roses young kid, but also the professional of you being like, you guys don't even know what I'm capable of, like, kind of thing, which is just so cool. Now you mentioned that's the day that Izzy split. Did you ever get a chance to meet him, or was that
No,
okay?
nope. In fact, I was told that I can't remember which one of them told me. I think it was Matt. Oh, it was Matt, because Matt took me out to a party at the Sunset Marquee. I think the bar there is called Whiskey or something like that. Or the Whiskey. It's not the whiskey on Sunset, but it's called the
Oh,
Whiskey Bar or something like that. And I go in there, and you can't smoke in there. So obviously I go out to smoke, and it's like Twiggy Ramirez, all the guys from the Strokes. I come from a pretty small town in Florida, so it's not a regular occurrence when I go out to smoke a cigarette, and there's literally like it's all a who's who of LA outside. And Matt had been talking to them, apparently pretty good, because they like Twiggy Ramirez came over and said, hey, I heard things went well today and this weekend. And I was like, yeah, I think, I think I felt good. I just think that, the version that would have happened if I had been the singer would have been probably closer to Guns N' Roses, but just a little nastier, just a little darker, probably than the route they went with Weiland. But I mean, I love the record they made. I love the first record especially, and I don't feel like I don't feel like I got the cream of the crop of the 36 songs that they had written. After
okay.
hearing some of the other songs on the record, I'm like, damn, I would have loved to have written, to the music of Fall to Pieces.
Mm,
That would have been a great opportunity for me to really kind of show my thing, and because I have a lot of different voices. Um, but again, it was just an honor, and especially after finding out all the people. I mean, I think the guy from Lit, a lot of
yeah,
people tried out, and so it was fun, just one of those fun things that I'll be able to tell Thor when he gets old enough to give a shit. And
exactly.
you know what I mean? Because at that point, that'll be like this legend, Guns N' Roses. It's like the Stones, you know what I mean? So
You're part of that whole tree, which is what I love doing this podcast. You are part of now that Guns, 6 degrees of GNR bacon, as I
yeah.
affectionately call it. That's cool. Without
I don't know if you saw the other. There's another video, a couple of what's on my Facebook actually, and it's a radio DJ. They were out of WEBN in Cincinnati. It was Bob Garrett and Jeff Zito, and they had a morning show, and they asked Duff about it, and Duff was like, and then there's a recorded interview of it, and it's on my Facebook, but it's where it was after Weiland was gone, and they said,
Mhm.
or they said, how close was Kelly Shaefer? Because we know him. And Duff goes, he was very, very close. And he goes, as a matter of fact, maybe I should revisit that. And they were like, well, we were thinking the same thing. We give you his phone number. And he goes, yeah, yeah, and so that was a really cool thing too. That was that was after Weiland. So, that's pretty cool. Cause I know they auditioned a lot of people. I'm told over 600 tapes. they were telling me how painful it was to come in and just sit and listen to horrible singers all day. You know what I mean? People just aren't realistic about their abilities. And he's
Yeah.
like, and that Neurotica record, which was a really good record, I'm proud of it. And it was, it was done at the Hit Factory in New York, and it was full of rock solid songs. So they were like, that it's a really, really good fucking record. So it was refreshing to hear that. And so it was cool. But, I've often told my close friends, and, I'll tell you now that I think I think that there was an element, my feeling from those guys, and I've hung out with a lot of people that have had, bouts with drugs and heroin, especially. And when they kick the heroin, it's almost like they know they have to, but they don't want to. It's kind of like that super hot, crazy ass girlfriend that you have when you're young, but she's trouble. She's going to get you arrested. She's going to get you in fights and bars. But, she's super hot. And so that's kind of how they talked about everything. And I remember that was at the same time, this was 2003, if I'm not mistaken, where Axl had done an MTV performance at the MTV Music Awards. And it was terrible. And he was super out of breath. And it was just painful to watch. And myself, Matt, and Duff, and Dave Kushner were talking about it. Yeah, you didn't see it? Slash was like, no, I didn't see it. He goes, but all I'm saying is that's the greatest rock front man. Like, he was all about Axl. And they were, that was well before they ever got back together. And so he had great admiration for Axl. And I don't blame him. I mean, he's not lying. I mean, he is truly the real deal. He was a pain in the ass, but so was Ozzy, and so was David Lee Roth. So we're all the greats, I mean, there's a reason why they're rock gods, I mean. So, but I mean, just listening to that. And then I remember also sitting on one of the rehearsals, and a young kid came by the warehouse that was friends with Matt, and he had a beer in his back pocket, and he looked like a typical LA singer. And he was talking to Matt about, wanting to get an audition. And I saw him talking to Slash. He's like, yeah, it's like a real LA deal, and they were talking back and forth. And I thought, maybe I came in here too prepared. Maybe I came in too, because I was like, I got my papers and I got all my lyrics and I got my fucking folder and I'm ready to go. And, there was no rock starism with me. But I mean, what am I going to do? Come in and pull that shit on some of the greatest rock stars ever, to ever do it?
No, you did it the right way. That was the way you had to do it, and you did it yourself. Was there, I'm glad you would, because I was going to ask if they ever, because they were talked about revisit, after Weiland, they fired him, and before he passed, because I think that would have been weird if they tried to get somebody after him passing. But it's that, I guess it was just in an interview. They obviously never officially reached out again after. But was there a conversation when they ended up meeting up with Scott Weiland, because Duff gave you the thumbs up, Slash says you're my guy? Was there a conversation after, hey, we're just going to go in this direction?
Not with me. No.
Okay.
No. Come to think of it, I'm trying to think of who it was that told me. No, I'm not sure that anybody did. I'm pretty sure they just announced that Weiland was going to be in, and I just never, I was like, well, of course I can't. Guy sold 4 million records. I mean, they're going to go with an unknown guy, or they're going to go with, I mean, it's a management decision. I seem to remember it probably was Duff, because he was the most sort of, friendly overall, just the most normal and conversing. And so I mean, he might have been the one who told me, but yeah, I mean, and then it just, from that point, it blew up, and I went on to reissue all the Atheist albums, and we started a whole thing that's been going alive and well ever since then. So, a lot of people are like, man, I'm so glad it didn't happen, because Atheist probably wouldn't have, we had been broken up. Atheist had been broken up at that point for a lot of years, 10 years at that point, since 93. And so it wasn't even a band that I was in anymore. Neurotica was my main focus, and I was kind of, a rock guy for a long time. And it wasn't until 06 that we got Atheist back together, and we've been, touring around the world since. But that's crazy to think that it's been 23 years almost next year, 23 years since that happened. It really feels like just yesterday. But, I got a little line in Slash's book. I mean, so, I mean, out of all the guys that, that did Audition, I mean, I got a fucking line, I mean, so I must have made some sort of a mark, so it, it makes me proud as like I said, as an extreme metal guy, that not faked my way in there, but I silently got past the deep dark secret of my past.
It's like a really it's cool because it's like a success story, but then of course, yes, Scott Weiland, but
Yeah.
you proved everybody, either like your manager wrong or just certain people right. Like you just here I am, and this is just like you were the guy, and you impressed everyone, and it just didn't the universe.
Yeah.
It wasn't
I
in the
mean,
cards
I
for the
didn't.
universe, and then whatever, it didn't happen. But
I
you
told my
had
mom, I was like, Mom, I didn't get the cover of Rolling Stone, but I'm fucking in Rolling Stone in a Guns N' Roses article. That'll never go away. That'll be
right
here
on.
100 years from now, and so my mom has always been my biggest supporter, and so she was disappointed, obviously, that I didn't get the gig. But a lot of my friends were like, "Wow," and again, here we are talking about it, almost 23 years later. So for an audition that I didn't get, it's pretty cool. You know what I mean? I almost feel like in a lot of ways, maybe from my situation, maybe it was better. Obviously, I'd probably be in a different financial situation had I had that opportunity.
You,
But
oh,
I mean, whatever.
you never know with the butterfly effect. I mean, you could have been on this whole timeline where you accidentally, walk off like a cliff or something, but you were in Velvet Revolver. I'm just, obviously using crazy hyperbole, but you don't know what's gonna happen. But what's
Can I tell
great,
you my
Mhm,
favorite moment of the entire experience
please.
was rehearsing in a very small room, like maybe a 20 by 30, not a large garage, but they had it set up and you could tell they'd been in there writing songs for a number of months. And we're playing these songs, man. And I get to the end of my verse and I look over and Slash turns to me and solos at me. And I was like, what? In my head, I was like, oh. What I'm saying? Like, anybody that's a fan, like, you know what I mean? Like that moment that a guy like Slash turns to you and solos at you as the singer. I was like, oh, I'll put that in my pocket and fucking take it with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's only done that to Michael Jackson, to Axl Rose, and maybe to a couple of other people that he guested with. But fuck yeah, man, Slash looked at me and fucking soloed at me. So I thought that, it seems cheesy, but you know what I'm saying. If you're a true rock fan, you can appreciate that
Sure.
story.
No, that's cheesy. No, I appreciate that. No, right on. But again, that these are moments to hold on to that are special. No one can take away from you. And the path that you're on now, which is leading you to, and I appreciate the time that you're giving me because you're going out on tour soon. 35th
Yeah.
anniversary, right, of Atheist,
Of our first
Origin.
album, yeah.
Yeah, so of Europe and the UK. So you excited for that? I mean, I have listeners all over the world. So
Yeah,
what
100%.
places are you going?
It's our first headlining tour, and we're doing it with some friends that we just toured with a band called Origin, and in the States we did a festival this year called Shred Fest, which was the music with Atheist is very complex and very musicianship oriented, completely different than the sort of the rock mold. And we back in '88 we put, or actually it didn't come out until 1990 in America. So this is the 35th anniversary celebration of that record, Piece of Time, and
Okay.
it was groundbreaking. But at the time it was not well received. It took about 17 years for people and the internet to kind of pick up on this record. So it always had a sort of an underground cult following, but it wasn't until the internet really became prominent that a lot of young kids dug up those old records, much like they did with Black Sabbath,
Hmm.
and brought it back. And then ever since then, it's been great. And we I've just been enjoying a lot of, like I said, we played two shows in Tokyo just a few weeks ago, and did a full tour of Australia and played in Hawaii, and did a full North American tour. So it's been really, really a lot of fun because these are songs I wrote when I was 16 or 17 years old, and
Wow.
between 16 and 20. So it's amazing to be, and I'm playing it with guys in my band that are in their 20s and early 30s. So I'm playing with young guys. I'm playing for young people, but I'm playing this really old music that's still loved and probably appreciated more now than ever. And so it's a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to that. We start in Poland on September 4th. So if you're in Poland, come see us. And
Okay.
yeah, it's gonna be
I'm a third Polish, so I need to visit there at one point in my life. It's not
it's great, man.
I don't think I'm gonna
Polish
get there this
music
time
fans.
around.
What's that?
No, it's not. You go ahead, please.
No, the Polish metal fans are kind of like just really rabid, very
Mhm.
enthusiastic, much like South America. Particular fans are different as you travel around the world. And in Japan, very reserved, very quietly respectful. You really have to you got to really rile them up to get them to You know, in extreme metal, you know, the typical reaction to a show is a mosh pit, you know, and they'll stand there quietly until you tell them it's okay to fucking go crazy. You know what I mean? Then they're, oh, okay, 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 because just that culture is so not used to that. So, and a lot of people told me that before I hit the stage in Tokyo, they were like, "Don't get mad, you know, don't get mad if they don't get, you know, if they don't get rowdy." I was like, "Fuck that, that's my job to rile them up." And so we had a lot of fun. It was cool, but I mean, I'm really looking forward to getting over there again. And you know, we got London and Paris, and we've just been fortunate. You know, I mean, the music game is a tough one these days. You know, and so really kind of
Yeah.
the fruits of your labor are really kind of recognized out on the road. That's when you kind of, especially if you've been doing this for as long as I have. Like, I'm now seeing, you know, the people that were my age when we were coming up, bringing their, you know, it sounds like a cliche, but they're bringing their kids to the shows, and you know, so sometimes it's cool to be old. You know.
Yeah, sometimes I know you're picking on me that I look younger than I am, but yeah, I feel
Yeah, you can
old
easily be
now.
28. I can't believe you're what, 42?
Yeah, I'll be 42, yeah, September 8th. You thought I was 28?
You can easily be 20. I wouldn't, you know.
Oh, I thought you said that. Oh, so maybe
No, no,
I'm letting
you
it
can
go to my
easily be.
head.
No, I'm saying if I saw you, I would never think you were 42.
Okay.
Uh, First, you know, you look like every other 28 to 32-year-old that I meet. So that's good. Good for you.
It's very hard for me to take a compliment. I can give them. I've given them, you know, as you can tell, it's hard for me to take them. So
In this
thank
very
you, Kelly.
podcast you've given them. Yes.
I appreciate that. No, because you're up until this, what you're going on the tour, your career has been something to really admire and super cool. And
Thanks, man.
once Thor's gonna be like, one day it's gonna happen. Dad, you're cool. I'm hoping
Man, I
one
hope
day.
so.
I'm glad that Harrison he knows my name now a little bit because he gets the Brandon, right? I don't know. He's the sentence structure is not there. He's 2.5. He's learning little things. Up.
You're gonna get. You might get. Well, Brandon's not as bad as Kelly, but um, you know, like my son was immediately like, "You have a girl's name."
Mhm.
And I said, I do
Oh.
have a girl's name, buddy. And I said, but it's also a guy's name. And so then I pointed out Kelly Slater, and I found all the cool Kelly. I found the Kelly from Bad News Bears. And I was like, come on now. There's a lot of cool Kellys out there.
That's so funny. I'll tell you what, next time, because I would love to have you back on again.
Thanks.
Let's see if we can have co-hosts Thor and little baby Brownstone. We'll have a little
Perfect.
double interview. See if
I look forward to
see what
it.
happens there. The catastrophe that'll probably turn into. Well, Kelly, just thank you so much for your time. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your stories. Your outlook on life is super cool. And
Thank you, brother.
yeah, so I hope we get to do this again. And that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? In the words of Axl Rose,
So it
concerning.
starts September 4th in Poland.
Yeah.
And it just starts, in Warsaw, Poland.
Okay.
So that's the first show, and it wraps up at the end of September, all through Europe. So come see us.
I'm gonna put all the stuff in the summary, all the links and
I'll send
everything.
you the tour poster.
Beautiful,
Cool.
love it. So that does
Thanks,
it for this
man.
episode of Appetite for Distortion. When we see the next one, in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.
Thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home.